CBSN New York.
CBSN New York's Hazel Sanchez spent every day at the Chanel Lewis trial in Queens. She spoke with CBSN New York's Denis earlier today for some insight on one of the most talked about cases in recent city history.
So Hazel, you attended both trials, the first one ending in a hung jury, a mistrial. This now, Chanel Lewis found guilty. What do you feel were the differences between the two trials?
Well, I think the first time around, I mean, you always learn your lesson once you go through it one time and then you have to go through it again. So I think the first time around, you really don't know what the defense is going to say. You don't know what they're going to go back with when you're presenting evidence. And in the first trial, I think the window of opportunity that the defense had was when it came to DNA, because the DNA that they had against Chanel was that they found it on her body, they found it on her neck, under her fingernails, and they also found it on her phone. But the type of DNA that they were talking about was what they called touch DNA. So for example, I'm holding my cup. Now I hand it over to you. Now hand back to me. You pick up your phone. My DNA is now on your phone. So it's not like a fingerprint where my fingerprint is on your phone. It's touch DNA is basically, it can be transferred just by touch. So that's not like fingerprints where you're the only one whose fingerprint that is, that you could say, okay, so that person definitely picked up that phone. It's touch DNA, so there's a lot more wiggle room on how that DNA could get there.
And the defense took advantage of that.
They absolutely did, because for those that followed the trial closely, you knew that on the day that Karina was murdered, she went and got pizza about an hour or so before she was killed. So when the prosecution presented the case and said his DNA was on her neck, his DNA was under her fingernails, and his touch DNA was on her phone, the defense in the first trial said, well, to the DNA expert, well, isn't there a possibility then that when she went to the pizza place, he had been there before her? So that was what the defense brought in as that little bit of doubt that kind of said, well, there's another way that his DNA could have gotten on her without him ever touching her.
How did that change between that trial and this trial?
So the second time around, since it was the pizza place, the prosecution brought in an NYPD detective whose sole responsibility when this investigation began was finding surveillance video. So one of the cameras that he got that day was the surveillance video from a pharmacy that was 2 doors down from the pizza place, Gina's Pizza Place, that Karina went to. So when they brought in the detective, all they showed was that the camera existed. So you see the camera angles that clearly show who would be going into the pizza place, and then that was it. So we just know that it's there. Later, they call Karina's father, Phil Vitrano. He gets on the stand and talks about how the day of her murder, about an hour or so before she was killed, he brought her to the pizza place and they presented the video. So now they've shown that there is video of not only Karina going into the pizza place on the day of her murder, but anybody else that would have gone into that pizza place would also be on that surveillance video. So now there isn't that opportunity to say, well, isn't it possible that Chanel went into the pizza place, because we don't know whether or not there is that video. And so the jury may say, okay, well, if he did go to the pizza place, why is the defense not presenting that evidence? Why are they not showing that he also went to the pizza place? So I think that window of opportunity that the defense had the first time around is now closed. They kind of filled in the gaps the second time around.
Why do you think the jury asked to see the confession tape, and then there was kind of a glitch, they weren't able to show it, they took a recess, and then said they didn't need to see it any longer? Do you think that they were able to just deliberate in that short time?
Well, they did it both times, actually. The first trial they asked to see the video, and they actually asked to see it in its entirety. And then the second time around, they asked again, but like you said, the glitch. You know what, I honestly don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if it's because, a lot of people questioned whether or not he was mentally fit to stand trial, but they determined that he was prior to this whole thing even starting. So I think maybe that might have been it, if they felt like there was any kind of coercion, and because I know the defense had tried to bring that up numerous times. They tried to present the doubt that that tried to present doubt by saying that maybe the detectives somehow made mistakes, and that's where they tried to kind of again poke holes in the case. But I don't know. I honestly I can't say. Maybe it was just to see whether they felt like they were putting words in his mouth. That could have been it, but I couldn't say. I couldn't say.
So what's the next steps?
Well, no surprise, the defense says that they're going to appeal. So unfortunately for the Vetrano family, I mean, although this is a huge step for them, having to wait for so long for what to them is justice, it's not over. So we'll see. And he will be sentenced on April 17th.